welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn doors and corners, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm back. It's Patrick.
Patrick's back.
Say amen.
Guess who's back? All right. So, tonight we are continuing Phase 1 of the MCU with Captain America, the First Avenger.
In my personal opinion, the best of Phase 1.
Ooh.
Like, I know that Iron Man might be objectively better, but this is my favorite.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
I can watch this movie so much.
Yeah. I love this movie also. Like, we'll get into it for sure, but yeah, I would be hard-pressed to put this one in Iron Man if I'm trying to be objective. Subjectively, I also prefer this film, but I have many, many biases that we will discuss.
I got to put Iron Man just slightly ahead, just because of it was the first thing first movie in a while where I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, that's true. This is just closer to my soul.
Yeah, Iron Man is amazing. I think this movie it speaks to me on many, many genre levels and type of hero that I think I'd been jonesing for a good Superman movie for a long time, and this was the closest I got for a long time.
That does kind of itch the Superman fix there, doesn't it?
On a character level, I think it does. They did Superman better as a character than, as much as I love him as the character, man, Henry Cavill was wasted. Chris Evans did better as not Superman.
Right?
But so this was, it's funny, I forgot, spoiler for the end of this film, I'd forgotten that the end credit is literally just a preview for the Avengers like the next summer. I was like, that's right. Yep. Avengers was like in full swing. It was like just around the corner.
I genuinely believe that this is like the most important movie to the Avengers in general. I feel like, people liked Iron Man. People were okay with Iron Man 2 and the Incredible Hulk. People were interested by Thor, but mostly because of the actors in question. This is the movie that needed to really sell like the heart of what these movies were going to be. Really get people emotionally invested. Because I feel like Iron Man 2 actually kind of like wasted the emotional investment almost because it just didn't hit the mark. And I think that this movie needed to have that, or else the Avengers itself wouldn't have been nearly as popular as it ended up becoming.
Yeah, this is definitely an important stepping stone. And it really set the stage, and the idea of S.H.I.E.L.D., if this movie hadn't worked as far as that, kind of the footprints of that, and you needed the counter anchor opposite Tony, and both Chris Evans' casting and the character of Captain America work so well as that counterpoint anchoring of just the Avengers in general. And if you hadn't had this movie work well, the entire dynamic of that team would have shifted immensely.
Yeah. Oh man, imagine if they had made Ultimate Captain America the Captain America they decided to use. He's a racist bag of dicks.
That's the description.
It's so bad. His most famous panel is him pointing at his helmet and yelling, "Do you think this A on my head stands for France?" when he's asked to surrender.
Okay. A tiny bit of me likes that, but I also get why that's a problem.
It's also just kind of a grotesque drawing of Captain America also.
So Captain America is one of those characters, quickly just on the background of my knowledge of this character, that I always was aware of, but it never, I think I might have flipped through a comic here and there, like at Borders or some other comic book shop. But I mean, when I was the only comic books I ever read with any kind of regularity were Star Wars and Star Trek comics back in the day, and occasionally like Superman and Batman. But I mean, my biggest understanding of Cap was like pop culture of just who the character was, and then playing him in what was the series of like Capcom games? It was like Street Fighter, but it was like all the Marvel characters. What is that?
Wasn't it?
No, it was like Ultimate Alliance or
Capcom versus Marvel or something like that.
Yeah,
Well, Ultimate Alliance was like
okay, no, you're
that
right.
was like the beat 'em up one.
Capcom versus Marvel. It was a fighting game.
There was Marvel versus Capcom, and then there was also Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which was a top-down co-op.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did play that, but the one I'm thinking of. So my my first wife, the lobby of her dorm had Capcom versus Marvel, the arcade machine, and because she went to a college where I couldn't go past the lobby in her dorm, I would, if I ever had to wait, I would just play that a lot, and so it was like half a year where I did that quite a bit, and the combination of Cap and Iron Man, sorry, not Iron Man, War Machine,
good.
Cap and War Machine were my favorite
So
combo.
good, dude.
Anyways, that's my
That's
little
so good.
personal anecdote.
I love that. I love that. Brian's in her dorm, like going, "Let's all go to the lobby." That's so good.
But I knew that Cap was an earnest character and one that would be like hard to get on screen. The balancing act of his earnestness, his goodness, his kind of old school nature, but at the same time, as much as I love old movies, you know, this is what 2011. Yeah, you still have to make them accessible, and my personal opinion is they nailed that balance really well.
I'd agree with that. I think that's one of the strengths of this movie, for sure. I had this vague understanding of Captain America also. I didn't really read any of the Captain America comics. I read some comics with him in it, and he was always just kind of there. You know, nothing overly special. But there was, like, I had these things, you know, the ultimate guide to Spider-Man, the ultimate guide to the Hulk, the ultimate guide to X-Men, and he was always in those. And he where they'd be like, oh, and at one point they fought with or they helped out Captain America, and they would always kind of like vaguely describe his backstory and stuff. And then my dad liked Captain America, and I remember him telling me about the Red Skull very distinctly as a kid. Because my dad thought that he was a pretty interesting villain. And that was like the extent of my knowledge going into this movie. And I've since read a lot more of Captain America. I read through like the entire Civil War series and stuff, which is when in the comics Captain America died. And when he's done well, he's a really interesting character.
Yeah, well, I'm sure with as long as he's been in comics, there's definitely a mixed bag, I'm sure.
Yeah, you should talk about the Nixon era.
What's your history with the character, Pat?
Kind of similar. Like he popped up in, you know, I was a big like Spider-Man animated series watcher, you know, and he'd pop in that every once in a while, and they do like crossover episodes. I remember playing him on an old NES game. It was like Captain America and the Avengers or some dumb little side scroller, 8-bit side scroller. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember him from that. Oh yeah, so bad but so good for the time, you know. And so yeah, I mean not anything too crazy. Just again, I'm not as big of a comic nerd as you guys are.
Right. Totally understandable. Especially for this character. This is a character that he's considered kind of classic, but he was never, you know, one of the A-listers after like 1950, you know?
Yeah. Well, he was literally in comics during World War II, right?
He was pretty much invented for World War II. Like he was quite literally just a propaganda piece. And I mean, we're talking like literally December of 1940 was his debut. Okay, and he debuted in his own comic book series just for himself. They needed him to be big. This was Captain America Comics #1, and created by a guy by the name of Joe Simon, who many people haven't heard of, and Jack Kirby, who many people have heard of. Very influential, considered one of the, like, he created all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
Ant-Man, the Avengers, Black Panther, Fantastic Four, Hulk, Iron Man, Silver Surfer, X-Men, had a part in Spider-Man, though there's some debate over stuff like that because sometimes comic book people are not good people. And Joe Simon, again, less known, but he was really big in the kind of Newsboy Legion, Boy Commandos type of thing from the 1940s.
Nice. Well, and I love that this film, they just go with basically that as canon, just the idea of him literally coming out of World War II. And then, I mean, the kind of meta nature of, being his character while also being real. It's just, it was a really, I think it was a clever way to roll out this story. And it helps him as a character where he doesn't just, instantly become amazing. It gives him a little bit of an arc after he gets the serum, and you have that whole kind of opening action sequence. I appreciate that, but I was gonna say, I know that you're gonna talk about this in your little rundown, but quickly I wanted to mention just one of the reasons this movie works is they got the perfect director. I really feel that that's, like, besides Evan's casting, along with a lot of other really good casting, to be fair, it was getting Joe Johnston to come and make this film.
Very much agree. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with Joe Johnston, he's like a storied director. He's known for, like, his kind of period pieces. He's done stuff and family films, especially. He did things like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, The Page Master, for those who might remember that. He was involved in, like, The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. He did some of my personal childhood favorites, like Jumanji. Already mentioned The Rocketeer. Love that movie.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to that one, people. And he also did things like Jurassic Park 3 and Hidalgo and The Wolfman, and it was, kind of his dark time. The Wolfman wasn't nearly as bad as people.
Everyone has to have a sophomore year, dude. Everyone has to have a sophomore year.
Yeah. And
I mean, Jurassic Park 3 wasn't horrible. It just wasn't nearly as good as the first one.
no, its major sin is just being boring, honestly. And it was also the first.
It wasn't bad. It was just fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It was, Viggo Mortensen's first, like, all right, we want to capitalize on that Lord of the Rings attention you got. But I mean, I remember in Jurassic Park 3, it was the first one that did the whole, oh, there's a super new dinosaur that's even bigger and badder than the T-Rex, which unfortunately they have continued to do in every movie since.
And it looks like they have some sort of, like, weird ape gorilla thing for this
Oh
new
my gosh.
one.
All right. But
It's going to be so bad.
yeah, that is a tangent we'll have to avoid. But yes, I agree. But yeah, why don't you give us a quick rundown? We got a long one here tonight, so we want to jump into it.
I should also mention that Joe Johnston got his start in visual effects, which I think really helped. He worked in ILM, which really, it's one of the reasons why his movies tend to look so good in terms of visual effects and balance so well, because he did the visual. He was involved in the visual effects for the original Star Wars trilogy, all three of them, as well as Raiders of the Lost Ark and the original Battlestar Galactica. Anyway, moving on. This is Captain America. This came out in 2011. It is PG-13. It is 2 hours and 4 minutes, and without credits, that's around 1 hour and 58 minutes. Directed by Joe Johnston, as we have already mentioned. Written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, which is a really funny name for a guy who has written many great movies. As well as starring Chris Evans, Hugo Weaving, Samuel L. Jackson, Haley Atwell, who is one of my biggest personal crushes, Sebastian Stan, who is my wife's biggest personal crush, Tommy Lee Jones, Dominic Cooper, and Stanley Tucci. Oh, I also should mention Toby Jones.
Yeah, good cast.
But the fantastic cast. There's even more people that I haven't mentioned that are all just really good really great. And I'm going to be talking a lot about that because this movie, I think, is perhaps the most interconnected movie of virtually any of the MCU movies.
I'd have a personal small shout out for Neil McDowell. Always love that guy when he pops up. And small but memorable role as one of the Howling Commandos, the mustache of the Kings.
Yeah, with a big bowler hat.
Big bowler hat.
Dumb McDougan.
I was just, he's one of those actors that when he pops up, when he's in First Contact and this and Band of Brothers, and he's done some DC stuff, right? He was a villain, I think, in one of the Arrow seasons. But
yes, he was a villain in Arrow that transferred over to the show Legends of Tomorrow, where he became a main villain, slightly redeemed, back to a villain, and then eventually dead.
Ah, okay. But he is one of those little character actors. When he pops up, I usually enjoy him. He's a lot of fun in this one. His little bits he gets here. So yeah. Well, as usual, we encourage you guys to please follow along, watch this with us. We are going to be starting this film in 3, 2, 1, go. And I'm trying to remember, is Avengers also technically distributed by Paramount? So Avengers has the Paramount opening? Or
yes,
is this the last one? So. Okay. Because I know that Paramount was only involved in Phase 1 before the MCU became its own... Well, it was bought by Disney.
I believe that it was announced pretty much during the release schedule of the Avengers that they had been bought out by Disney.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny too, this Phase 1, I always forget whenever I see these that they still have kind of the old Marvel logo, and they don't have there's no theme music yet. And they don't have, the all the clips inside the Marvel logo. I had totally
no page flipping.
Yeah. I had totally forgotten when I watched this recently again that they opened this in modern day and then flash back. I just, for some reason, had totally forgotten about this. But it's a fun little way to not immediately thrust the audience into the 40s, I guess, and also establish a little bit of intrigue here right off the bat.
You're just like, ooh, how did this get here? Well, the original plan for this movie was based on the concept of a man out of time, which is a line that comes up many times throughout the series.
Yeah.
But they wanted to make a movie that took place in like half and half, where it would be like modern day, him acclimating, becoming a world-known hero in the modern day, while flashing back to his World War II days and his origins.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I can imagine there were conversations that didn't want to trust this film being mostly set in the 40s. Even though, because it's just, as much as those movies used to be huge, when was the last 1940s movie that was, Private Ryan, 98 maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
But I could see a studio head being like, I don't know, I think we're going to lose the, our target audience, those young adults, men, if we set this thing in the 40s. But I'm so glad they did.
Yeah. No, very much so. I love it. I love the aesthetic. I love the kind of... I like historical fiction in general, especially when you're dealing with like sci-fi fantasy elements added in, and this is the ultimate like sci-fi fantasy movie.
Yeah.
In that way.
What is with his flashlight? Did you see the shape?
What was that, Pat?
Go ahead. Pat, you got something?
No, I'm just taking it in. It's been a little bit since I've seen it.
Yeah. I do love and again, I think a lot of this is Joe Johnston, but a lot of this is inspired by like 1940s comics and kind of the Art Deco influence. There's a couple, not clashing, but kind of intermingled influences in the industrial style of this movie. And I love it. Like, just like the pillars and the cutouts and just the equipment got that kind of future but old vibe to it going really well.
It's referred to as retrofuturism.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of it also. Bordering on steampunk. Some people refer to it as steampunk. Others will refer to it as diesel punk. And apparently they considered bringing back the character of Phil Coulson for this for that sequence.
Question for everybody.
Awesome. Yes.
So I've heard of steampunk. I've heard of diesel punk. Is there like battery punk? Because that's a whole nother fuel source. I'm just being stupid.
There's all kinds of punks now. Which they started with punk and then they moved into core, and now you have things like cottage core and things like that. They even have one that's like lumber punk.
Oh my gosh.
Cyberpunk, of course, has been around. I think that's kind of actually like the origin of it.
They just like kill that guy really fast.
They do.
They even like cut back to him to make sure
he
that
did it well.
Yeah, but to say they even cut back to make sure you know he's dead.
Yeah.
I love that they
It's
have this
absurd.
massive tank here, and it only shows up in like one more shot when Cap blows it up later. You think that, like the cool design like that, they would have used it somewhere else, but they just chose not to.
Well, I'm assuming that it had to do like with just expense, but also it is a direct reference to one of Adolf Hitler's proposed Wunderwaffen, his wonder weapons that would do everything. This massive, massive tank. I don't have the exact name of it off the top of my head, but the idea was that it would like go everywhere and just be able to destroy everything and not take any damage and blah blah blah. But the fact is, it would never be able to cross any rivers.
Yeah, there's not a bridge on the planet that can support it, right?
Yep. And it would get stuck. Physics is a bitch.
And this is the one, and having nailing Red Skull's casting, because Hugo Weaving, I mean, obviously at this point he's already done The Matrix, he's already done Lord of the Rings, and I know V for Vendetta is a lot of people's, is high on a lot of people's list, but he's just so effortlessly menacing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the one tragedy, and I know there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff, and I freaking love Tom Hiddleston, but he could have been a bigger villain just with his casting and the character of Red Skull. I wish we had gotten more of Hugo Weaving specifically as Red Skull.
Yeah, he was signed on for 3 movies. They never contacted him again, and it makes me sad. He was going to be the main character. Said like Loki was going to find the cube and come to Earth looking for it, and that he was going to get it, and then the cube was actually going to rescue the Red Skull, and they were going to kind of work together to conquer Earth for the Avengers. But then they were just like, hey, we could save a whole bunch of money and just have Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, and I mean, and he's great, but man, I would have loved to have seen Tom Hiddleston and Hugo Weaving like chewing the scenery together. That would have been. I'm sad we never got that.
Yeah.
This whole opening sequence, though. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention this other actor hanging out here. He was kind of in his prime of popularity also. He was best known to some anyway as Argus Filch from the Harry Potter movies. He appeared in all 8 of the Harry Potter movies. And then he was also well known for being in Game of Thrones shortly after this, playing the character of Walder Frey, evil villain.
I totally forgot that he was in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of a funny little thing because people would recognize him. Actor's name is David Bradley.
Well, he does great with this little role right here.
And there it is.
Oh,
okay.
Is that Raiders?
Reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's great. Trinkets in the desert.
Oh, so
I love that they do tie in the fact that Hitler was genuinely obsessed with the occult and stuff like that. Like that's not made up.
No, he was very much obsessed with the occult. All kinds of various relic-ish powers and things like that. He was really interested in them. I could go on and on about that. That's a niche of history that's fascinating to me. I want to ask this, and I bet Pat would have some opinions on this, given some of the movies that we've watched together here. I love Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull, but if I was going for this, I think that I would go for Mads Mikkelsen.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. Just because he's got kind of the weird eye and face, and so it kind of makes him more menacing automatically.
He's got the natural accent.
The weird. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he's so imposing. Mom died of tuberculosis. Cooks
that
this.
is quite the list there.
It's like looking at my own medical records.
So this,
Asthma is one of the 3 reasons I was denied joining the military as well. Sorry there, bud.
I was just gonna say, I love that they introduce immediately one, shirt off, and just it they tell you so much about his character in that scene. I mean, obviously they go to reinforce those character traits over and over again, but that and then cutting right to this is such efficient introduction of character.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who may not know, this is how they used to get their news back in the day.
Yeah. You either caught some radio now and then, a newspaper, or this, yeah. Because they weren't really previews back then, I don't think. You actually literally did have newsreels and little short cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, man.
This is an interesting thing to me. Like, his insistence on trying to join and everything. That's something you ran into a lot back then.
Oh, yeah.
There were a rash of suicides that occurred in the United States among men and even boys who were denied the ability to join the military and serve in World War II.
Yeah.
It was a big thing.
Yeah, a different time. I love it. As an introduction to Bucky, this is also just great.
This was considered controversial among certain hardcore.
It's funny, Bucky has a really strong right arm. That's interesting. Good to know. Well, foreshadowing? I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, there's a whole comic run of Bucky being like this scrawny kind of like kid hero, right?
Up until this, essentially, he was always a kid. He was always like a teenager. He was supposed to be the proxy, the Robin, proxy for the readers. And they were just like, we don't want to have him taking a kid into battle that ends up getting killed. Let's just make it friends.
Yeah. And
so they made it friends.
But wasn't the Winter Soldier also Bucky even back in the day?
The Winter Soldier did not appear until the mid-2000s.
Really?
In fact, yep. In fact, there were 2 characters that for almost 25 years, there was a joke, or almost 20 years, I should say, that there was a joke that there were only 2 comic book characters that will never come back from the dead. It was Bucky Barnes and Jason Todd. And then they both came back from the dead as cold-hearted, brainwashed killers. The Red Hood and the Winter Soldier.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So is the red guy here, like, in the cylinder? Is that some kind of reference to something?
As a matter of fact, it is. That is a reference to the original pre-Marvel Human Torch.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And for the hardcore nerds in the audience, I'd like to point out young and unknown Jenna Coleman, future longtime companion of Doctor Who, as Bucky's date. She's adorable. She's one of my celebrity crushes.
I do love the casting for Howard as much as what's the actor who plays him in 2?
Yeah, him.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot his name. He's great. They really nailed both the castings for Howard Stark.
Mm-hmm. They really did. And both of them appeared as Howard Stark in the What If series. It should also be noted that Dominic Cooper reprised his role of Howard Stark in both Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the short-lived but really good Peggy Carter TV series.
Yeah, the Carter series, that was good. I love that this movie also came out, shortly after Iron Man 2, and you get the reference to, the World Fair and kind of this, the expo and all that.
Yeah,
just a fun little callback. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's already run off again.
But seriously though, like that little just blip, the brunette standing in front of him went on to become Doctor Who's main companion for years, and she's been in a lot of things now. She's great. Though she became a little bit annoying later in the series, but she's been on a bunch of other shows that have taken off quite well. Things like the Sandman TV series and whatnot.
What do you think of this as a way to basically let him know about Steve's character a little bit? Just kind of happening upon this conversation.
It's convenient, but I don't see anything wrong with it. I think that it does what it needs to do.
Yeah. I think the reason it doesn't bother me because I think this is a conversation Bucky and Steve have probably had a few times, and it's totally believable they'd be having it again in this scenario. So him being there is a little convenient, but the conversation doesn't come across as forced, given what they've already told us about these guys and their friendship, and the origin of this line right here. I love it. As you go through the MCU, all the callbacks to their friendship is just. It always makes me happy.
I'm telling you, this is the callback movie. There are so many callbacks throughout this entire series that come back to this movie more than any other film.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But I also feel that it kind of informs the character of Erskine because he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but he's really important. And I think that if he truly believed in what he believed, then he would be out there prowling among the recruits, kind of looking for the right person.
Yeah.
So I think it fits pretty good.
Oh, yeah. No, I like it too. I love, by the way, how they nailed the color palette of the 40s here. It's just all shades of beige and brown. Just everything.
Yeah.
Just
I used to boil everything.
Yeah. They really... Okay, so I know that it was a combination of a body double they used for Steve, right? But then also...
okay.
They actually had to slim down the body double because even he was too big sometimes. Go ahead.
Yes. Every single scene in which you have little baby Captain America here, little skinny Rogers, they shot the scene 4 times. Okay? They used motion control cameras. They would shoot it completely without him. They would shoot it with the body double. They would shoot it with Chris Evans, and I don't remember what the 4th one was for. But essentially what they would do is they would create these layers of film. Sometimes it would be just a digital face replacement on a body double. A lot of times they actually digitally shrunk Chris Evans and used those other passes to determine where the body would be using the double and keeping the background consistent using the false frame.
Yeah.
Well, especially just one shot right here. I just noticed where you could see it was the other guy. It wasn't Chris Evans' character. You could see the face look different, and where they didn't use anything, and it was like, oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Well, especially too with Chris, I feel like they could shrink him down easier when he has clothes on. But yeah, just some of those background shots but it's very effective. I think there's one or two, like you mentioned, you can tell it's not him. I think there's one shot a little bit later where the comp between his head and the body isn't perfect, but generally speaking, it's a very effective effect that does its job by almost not being noticeable, other than the fact that obviously Chris Evans is not this small.
Yeah, I actually kind of disagree in some ways to that.
Really?
And that I think that in some ways it is the worst effect in the movie, like visual effect, because there's so many times that you can see that it's clearly fake, but it is also done so well and works so well for the character that you don't really care that it's not perfect.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree with you that it's you never look at it and not know that you're kind of being tricked. Like, it's just because it's so in your face, and they don't try to hide it in shadows, so it's very obvious as it being a special effect. But I also I think that I buy into it completely. I don't know if that makes sense, and so it never bothers me.
Yeah. Here we have the character of Anim Zola that was introduced, played by Toby Jones, who is a fun actor who has used the fact that he's kind of funny looking to great effect in his acting career.
Oh, yeah.
And he's another one of those characters that keeps popping up throughout other things. Vastly important to the Winter Soldier. Pops up in What If, and the What If series actually gives context for him potentially returning in the future.
I love the little bit of foreshadowing of like his face in the round screen for a second.
Because he was a villain in the comic book series, and that villainy was in the form of him being an AI who controlled a robot, and his face was in this television screen in the robot suit.
Hmm. Yeah, we get that in Winter Soldier again. Also, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No.
Also, there was a video game in which he was the bad guy and he had a robot suit.
So I was going to ask you, Zach. Do you know? Is there an official MCU explanation? Is the idea that the Tesseract was left behind by Odin at some point, or the origin of the Tesseract being on Earth? Is that ever actually explained? Because we were talking about this with Thor last week. That I used to think, wait, was that the Tesseract? The whole the thing that the Frost Giants had, but that's not the casket. So the Tesseract has been on Earth for a long time, right?
The Tesseract has been on Earth. I can't say absolutely because there's some things that were talked about that are things that are dubiously canon. But one of the things I understand is that the Tesseract, the Power Stone, was one of the lost stones. Things like the Time Stone that was on Earth to be guarded. The Reality Stone, everybody knew that, like, not everybody knew, but it was known that it vanished with the Dark Elves and that Odin probably had it somewhere. I don't know where the Mind Stone was. The Soul Stone was lost. Things like that. But the Space Stone, not the Power Stone, sorry. The Power Stone had the Temple of the Power Stone, as seen in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. But the Space Stone, nobody knew where it was. It had vanished somewhere, and somehow it had ended up on Earth. And that is kind of as far as I know, a little bit of a blank spot in the history of those things. The stones.
So you're introducing both Peggy Carter and Tommy Lee Jones' character, who I forget his character's name, Colonel something.
Mm-hmm.
But man, again, very efficient, this film, in that, I mean, that introduction with Carter of just you get introduced to her by her knocking out the guy, by totally just taking advantage of him, but also just proving her point. And then his reaction when he rolls up is just like, get up. What are you doing? Like, he's not, it's not put off at all. And just this fun little speech here. It's a really fun, cool way to introduce both those characters and tell you a lot about them in the process.
I very much agree. And no, I think that they're great. I love Tommy Lee Jones in this movie. He's one of my favorite parts of this thing. His just reaction to Rogers. So we have the best. Man.
Yes. Well, and Tommy Lee Jones is just a great actor. And yeah, he gets those little moments in the middle of his speech that just nail it. They really run. I forgot how quickly they get through this training kind of montage. That this scene with the pole here so quickly comes up, and then I got to reference Caravan of the Garbage. It was so. Okay. You saw the one about this where they tried to do this. He's like, I could do that, and failed spectacularly. This is harder to do than it looks. I have tried this many times as a kid. Also, I'm sure you guys have at some point in a playground, right, tried to climb something like this.
Playground, come to one of our F3 workouts.
All right. So as grown-ups, you guys still. This he gets very little screen time, but this DI is also great because he's kind of scrawny but loud. I don't know, I like him. He has a very memorable face.
Same. He is one of my favorite parts. This whole sequence, because, like you said, it's used very efficiently. We have this tactile understanding of these three characters that were just introduced down to, their very personalities. They've got Agent Carter here. They've got the General, and even the recruit, the counterpoint recruit, Hodge. He's not a huge character, but he is important.
Well, yeah, putting somebody right next to Cap to contrast him against. Mm-hmm. And then also, I mean, just, the poll demonstrates that he's intelligent and creative. And this scene, I mean, is all about, just in a little over the top way, but still very effective way to kind of show his heart and his courage. I mean, they lay out his character traits very efficiently throughout this film. And in this scene is, is one. Like I said, it's a little, I actually love this scene, but also I'm like, it's just so cliche to toss a grenade into the whole fake grenade thing. But it is effective.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's great. I think that it's classic.
Yeah.
Because, you're talking about it being kind of tropey and tired. I think it's classic. I think it's exactly what it should be.
Oh, yeah,
It fits the time period. Because it shows this character. Hodge is not a bad guy. They make him a little bit of a like, the worst thing that he does is he's a little bit lecherous towards Carter.
Yeah.
And so it's just like right here, he does a smart thing. If somebody throws a grenade, he goes and he hides behind an engine block. He's not a coward for doing so.
No.
But I don't know, but they make him just enough of this kind of, is this actually a good person to really counterpoint you?
Yeah.
But here's another example of them moving so briskly. They just jumped right to, oh, it's time for the procedure. He's been chosen.
Yeah.
Like, another movie would have really drawn out this, is he going to be chosen? And it would have been like the first half of the movie.
Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't, though, because if you had taken that time, I mean, I've heard people say they wish this was strung out and the whole him on tour thing was compressed a little bit. And I get that, although I think that tour part is important. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I don't feel like you miss anything big here. They establish his character. This conversation is so good. I mean, it just kind of lays out the purpose of the choice. And yeah, you're right. Hodges isn't a bad guy, but the contrast when you get an exceptional guy is so striking, and it's executed very well in this film.
Yeah. No, this also gives backstory to the bad guys. It helps you understand some things, but every single like YouTube video you see on Captain America, or not even YouTube video, but like, TikTok character thing, or even official Disney stuff, features lines from this conversation, because it is literally the defining conversation of the entire character of Captain America.
Yeah. This also, I think, this is one of the two best. I mean, not that he had a ton of scenes, but Stanley Tucci is so good. Just his delivery here. He's just, the earnestness he has, the sincerity he has, but it's also just like this gentleness he brings to his role.
Yeah. It's really funny. The last movie he did with Toby Jones before this was The Hunger Games, and he
very
different in that. I love Stanley Tucci. Have you ever seen a movie called Undercover Blues?
I have not.
Grew up with it. It's Dennis Quaid as a CIA agent who's retired, who has a baby, and he gets mugged by this thug named Muerte, played by Stanley Tucci. And he utterly embarrasses this guy, and because of his arrogance and machismo, he's pursuing Dennis Quaid to kill him because he got beaten up by a man holding a baby, and his reputation has been hurt. And he keeps appearing in all the wrong spots throughout the movie as this big spy thing is unfolding. And he's just this thug, and he becomes integral to the plot. And he's hilarious. Just so stinking funny.
He's an actor I even if he's in movies I don't like, I usually like him very much. He's just a very gifted actor.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the can we talk about the music for a tiny bit too? This is very subtle music happening here, but man, Alan Trevesti, I mean, famous for Back to the Future. And I know that a lot of the themes in this movie get reworked into Avengers, but this has such a great soundtrack.
Silvestri is the bestie, man. Let me tell you. But laugh at me. Yeah. What do you think of this? A lot of people talk about this being way over the top and like him not being a great villain, and I don't know. I love it. I think it's great.
Oh, I'm totally okay with this. Well, he is. I mean, his arrogance is part of his character, and gosh, I have it would be weird if he wasn't a little bit arrogantly self-indulgent in this kind of way. I do think that the whole hiding his appearance for as long as they do, I mean, it's effective when he finally pulls off, his mask on that scene later, when they're escaping. It's very effective. I don't know. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit, but I appreciate that they as cookie cutter as Red Skull might be as a very straightforward villain, they do actually give him a decent amount of screen time in this film. And I appreciate that even if they don't make him overly complicated or nuanced, that they still don't just skim over him and make him like kind of an afterthought where he's just a plot device.
I think that they really had to sell that they were leaning into the comic book accurate one, but they also wanted to treat it with this level of gravitas. Because like the 90s Captain America movie that's just embarrassingly bad. The Red Skull was just a guy, you know?
Really? I still have never
Yeah.
seen that, so.
Just some dude who looks almost like Lex Luthor from Lois and Clark.
Oh, goodness. Oh, man.
Do you believe the love story?
Yes. And, I mean, I will fully admit that I got just as teary about his end in Endgame as I did about Tony's death. The reason why I think it works is, one, this movie does not rush it. She just kind of sees some qualities in him that she admires, but I think that she also, feels a little like protective of him, or sorry, I don't know, something a little bit motherly, even a little bit at the beginning here.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, this movie lets it go. I mean, some time goes by, right? I mean, once we get over to the front, there's some chunks of time that go by. I mean, it has to be at least months.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, in between all of it, I think that we're looking at least a year of time between the beginning and the end.
Yeah, probably. And the fact that they just get kind of a quick little kiss at the end, right before he boards the plane. I do believe it. And I think part of that is I think that Evans and Haley Atwell genuinely have chemistry also.
Agreed. I don't disbelieve it, but during these scenes, call me shallow, but I'm sitting there going, this is like one of the most beautiful women any guy is ever going to meet. And she's just like, hello, scrawny man, what up?
But see, I guess I don't see her looking at him like that. I think that she admires him, but I don't think that she's like...
Yeah, she may not be admiring him physically. She admires his spirit, his drive, his essence, right?
Yeah.
And it may not be like, she may not have romantic feelings about him, but she can admire him without having feelings.
Yeah.
And then obviously we're going to see it. Right? Well, and that's just it. Like, she appreciates the personality here, and then he gets his glow up, and she's like, "Damn."
Dude,
well, I mean, we'll talk about it when it happens. Yeah. But man, that from what I've read, that was not scripted. Where she like had a genuine reaction to Chris Evans when he's all when he emerges.
Well, they kept it a surprise.
Yeah, she like touches him and is like, "Oh my gosh!" it's great.
Yeah. I mean, this whole sequence is really good. I love this lab. It is so 1940s. The headsets and the lab coats and the kind of like smooth greenish gray. It's great.
Oh yeah, no, you totally believe this was actually high tech in the 1940s, and I love too just like how like thick and industrial the pod is that he goes into. Like they didn't make it dainty. This thing looks like it just weighs a ton.
It looks like it should be used for re-entry.
Yeah. I do love this tiny little moment here. Just a little military versus politician. And then, of course, you get introduced ahead of time to the villain. Or, I mean, not the villain, but a minor villain.
A bad guy.
A bad guy.
And this drives me crazy, okay? That actor is fantastic. Most people would know him from the Hobbit movies. He plays the character of Thorin Oakenshield. If you've ever seen the TV show Hannibal, that's Thorin.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I had no idea.
That's Richard Armitage. Richard Armitage is my personal pick if they wanted a truly comic book accurate version of Doctor Strange. It should have been Richard Armitage. Doctor Strange is almost Vulcan-like in the comics. And Richard Armitage would have just been perfect, but he wouldn't have had that Tony Stark, Benedict Cumberbatch charm and swagger.
So, is there a tiny continuity thing here where Rogers has like a strap over his chest and it just magically disappears when he emerges?
It looks like it's on his below. It looks like it's below his chest. It looks like it's like right below.
Yeah.
So I feel like some of the shots we don't see it.
Wait, but they do the full body shot all the way down to his feet when he like emerges. And
I think it's
not
fairly
there.
obvious, Brian.
He just breaks it.
It's very obvious. Yeah, he's just so swole that he just bursts right out.
I love this. This little wasn't so bad. This.
Yeah, okay.
I also, I mean, not to be overly graphic, but that those like whatever they put on him, like one of them's like just right on his nipple. Man, that would hurt.
Right?
You know, one thing that's interesting is like the doctor is very kind of melancholy about all of this. He's like, well, we'll give it another shot. Like, he's not encouraged about this at all.
Yeah,
I mean, he's hungover.
He is a little hungover. Because he does seem very solemn
That's
in this
funny.
whole thing.
Well, I think that he genuinely likes Rogers, like Steve and stuff like that, and he doesn't want... He's worried, like, what if he made a mistake? What if this turns him into a monster like the Red Skull? This is him doing what
That's
he
a cool
needs
looking
to do,
fridge.
but it's
That
personal.
looks like a jukebox from the Fallout 4 video game.
I do love the tiny little bit of humor there. Just the,
Laughs in the face of danger.
this.
You know,
Too
given
late to
this
go to
little
the
last
bathroom?
scene of Skinny Rogers. Did you know that in Endgame there was the thought of Thanos using the Reality Stone to revert him back to his tiny, skinny self?
I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah. Like, just for a moment, but, like,
Oh,
that's when Mjolnir would have come to him.
I mean, okay. See, now you say that, I'm like, I'm
He
kind of
still would
curious.
have been able to hold it, though. He still would have been able to hold it because
Yeah.
he was worthy, regardless of his size.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, like, they didn't want to just have it in there for funsies and then remove it, and it allowed them to use the whole Mjolnir thing earlier in the fight because Thanos wouldn't have had the Reality Stone yet.
Hmm.
Yeah. But the dials and the twisty thingies.
All the analog stuff, yep.
Analog. I love it. I love the analog. In fact, I think that more science fiction needs to have analog because, a touch screen can crack and all this stuff.
Did you guys catch the name of that? The things Tony was turning, it's the Vita Ray. That sounds like some vitamin company. Oh, with Vita Ray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Under
like a
patented
sunscreen
vitamin
company or something?
systems, your skincare routine is about to change.
Well, I mean, that's got to be
Exactly.
there we go.
Ugh. I'm 100% straight, and I always get a little gay at this moment.
Does
Like,
he?
this
He do
is-
look good.
I don't know how much HGH that guy's on, but this is what peak human performance looks like.
Oh yeah. Well, and we
Like, this
just
is what
watched.
every guy wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, we just watched Thor, last week, and Chris Hemsworth obviously put in the work too. But there was something about that shot that was just like, But this right here, where she's like touches him, is totally unscripted. Just
Yeah.
now you believe that she's physically attracted to him, right?
Right?
I love that
Now-
Tommy Lee tells the senator, hey, how you like Brooklyn now? Because he was just complaining about being in Brooklyn. I love that.
Yeah. Here we have the action sequence moment. Like, things are gonna go bad. It's also time for the great part of the hero's journey where the mentor has to die.
Oh yeah. So okay, I do love that. I love that Carter is just very competent. Like she's an excellent shot. The
Mhm.
Okay, what do you think about? I know it's a comic book. Just you kind of have to do it. But that conveniently they used every vial they brought except one, and that there was no other vials anywhere.
Right?
Like
I mean,
that there was
well-
one random vial there for him to grab that they didn't use in the procedure. You know what I mean? Like it's just
think
it's very comic
He
booky,
just
like
shot
convenient.
Grandma. He just got Granny.
they
That's
really-
not cool.
They really needed to establish that this is a bad man. Shooting Stanley Tucci wasn't enough. They needed to shoot Grandma. That right there is the most unbelievable scene in the whole movie because a Thompson actually hit somebody.
Yeah.
What they need to do is they need to get Dick Tracy to track him down.
They can't. The rights are still in the hands of the actor from the 1991 movie, and he won't give them up until he dies.
Warren Beatty, what a meanie.
Warren Beatty.
The peel
Yeah,
out by that taxi is also unrealistic.
And here she is. Look at that gun that she's using. What is that, I wonder? Is that perhaps a
Walther
Walther
PPK?
PPK?
I mean, she is British.
Exactly. She's a British agent. She has to use a Walther PPK.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole, like, getting used to his own body. Second puberty, almost.
Yeah. Well, it's a great way to have an action scene, because we haven't really had a good one so far. And again,
No.
a good action scene advances the plot, and this absolutely does that. You're advancing his character. He's learning about himself. Obviously, this is important to the plot of the film. I mean, this is a fantastic little scene.
You're showing what he's capable of also, that he's not just your average man. He's not just, oh, we took a little man and made him a big man. It's
he didn't just take steroids.
And made him superhuman.
I love that his pants are too short too. The constant, just the way that he's got a shirt on that fits, which they gave him, obviously.
But the shirt,
his pants are still.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got his Hobbit pants on.
Yeah. His purple stretchy pants.
Ooh.
Good old tropes. What is it with these guys, Marvel guys, and traveling on the outside of cars?
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah.
I love the fact that this guy just like walks out of this thing like pretty. He just did a good role.
He's a Hydra agent.
Yeah.
He's like on meth.
Now, see, I believe a 1940s car door could stop a bullet.
Right?
Like a modern car door couldn't do that.
I mean, they can stop
my
like
car
a 9
could-
millimeter.
Oh,
What do you think he's firing? Is
No,
that 45?
380.
You're pretty right. It's probably
It's
a small
380
caliber.
at best.
Wait, no, that's a Walther. That's another Walther. So that's
Yeah.
gonna be smaller than a 9 millimeter.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I just know that my car door is
that's like
not
a
nearly as
380
burly as a
38.
as a Ford from the
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah, you're right. That's a Walther P38.
I love that. You know what I love the most about that is like the common trope is, either run after the bad guy or save the person. And the kid's like, no, I can swim, go get him. I love that they kind of subverted that a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Yes. Fantastic subversion of expectations.
they barely show the sub, but it's a great, again, in this that the Hydra aesthetic. This is a great sub.
Yeah. Diesel punk, retrofuturism.
Oh yeah, feels like it can come
Love
right
it.
out of the Rocketeer.
God, this makes me yearn for a modern Rocketeer.
Yeah, I love it.
And yet-
I love the throw. I mean, I don't know how Steve Rogers had the purchase in the water to do that, but I still love it.
Well, he grabbed the brick wall that was underwater, hooked his feet underneath it, and then used it as a counterweight in order to fling.
Mm.
And here
This
we have the
The very first, right? Very first Hail Hydra.
Yep. Which, oh man, Hail Hydra. That is like that's like a cultural thing now. Shortly after this, they had a Marvel comic run where Steve Rogers got like somebody went screwed with reality and made it so that he had been a Hydra agent, and he like turned against them, and it turned into a meme for a little while of Captain America saying "Hail Hydra." And oh man, if you've watched the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hail Hydra, when they do the Hydra turn for S.H.I.E.L.D. from Winter Soldier, ooh,
Yeah.
boy, does it stick with you.
Now this is actually probably one of the only scenes. It's not a bad scene at all, but a scene that I feel like they didn't need. they didn't need to see him break away from Nazi Germany, other than maybe just because they didn't want them to really be Nazis.
I actually disagree. I think this is necessary. I think this makes him stand on his own two legs as a villain. He's not just a tool of Adolf Hitler. He's his own man. He's his own leader. He's his own threat. Also, you have this one gentleman who looks incredibly close to Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the Waffen SS, called the Architect of the Holocaust. This gentleman in black. It's not. I don't think it's supposed to be him, but it looks just like him. And I don't know. It also shows the progression of technology, and even has this little character moment with Zola that kind of informs you where Zola's head is in the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I love it.
Well, no, it's not a bad. It's and like I said, I'm not saying it's a bad scene, but
I also think it was a needed break from the rest of it. We just
I love the little
heard
count there.
the Hail Hydra.
Sorry, that little the quick with the finger, just 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder how oblivious these guys are to just not even consider this guy a threat.
Well, why would they? They're in a military that is owned by fear, and these are the top people.
But they came in already suspicious of him.
There's a difference between we're suspicious of you and you're going to use a death ray to atomize us. I
do love Marvel's way of making disintegration very palatable for the PG-13.
Yeah.
They just explode into bluish kind of goo. The whole 2-arm thing is an interesting little twist. Is that from the comics or is that from this film?
I have no idea.
The 2-arm salute?
I think that they just wanted to be we need a salute, but it can't be the Nazi salute.
We can't actually do the Nazi salute. No. Man. The look on Chris Evans' face right there is just, man.
Now that's the thing there, though. The use of the word genetic code. That it's a little early for that kind of talk.
Yeah, the genome hadn't even been mapped yet, right?
Well, I mean, mapping the human genome didn't fully happen until the 90s.
Yeah.
But the discovery of DNA and the naming of DNA didn't happen until the 1950s.
Yeah, I mean, it would have just been said, your blood is the only thing we have. So they could have just changed the line to be something about his blood. Or just like a generic, inside of you or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that they use the sub in order to kind of justify the continued presence of Howard Stark.
Yeah. So, okay. I find it interesting that they kind of dismiss Steve as a military asset immediately. I get that he'd be disappointed that Steve is, the only one, that there's not, that, I don't know, just the idea that he will just go to a lab.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there would have been, because this was also the beginning of special forces, of small unit work and that kind of stuff. I mean, I actually really enjoyed the tour, and I think that it's a really good story idea. But it's odd to me that a military mind wouldn't look at someone like him and think, okay, there's a way to use this guy.
In theory, yes. I think that he's more of a research asset than he is any type of combat asset. He'd be effective, but he wouldn't be super effective. He'd be better as like he says, a mascot, but they wouldn't want to put him in harm's way because of his potential use from what's in his blood. I actually heard a number of commentators mention that inconsistency. I'm like, no, you're thinking like a soldier. You're not thinking like a strategist.
Yeah.
His value is in his blood. What is proven is that the stuff works. What is not proven is Steve's ability to be effective.
And I do appreciate that he's, when we get into the action scenes, I actually am glad, as much as Winter Soldier was great and the evolution of his combat effectiveness, grows, I'm glad that his fighting style, as much as it's a little bit, straightforward and clunky, was very appropriate for this era. Because this era was not the era of, martial arts were barely a thing at this point.
Yeah, Krav Maga, MIC-MAP, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Mixed martial arts.
Yeah, this was all about
really
boxing and brawling back in.
Yeah, there was basic self-defense type of quote-unquote martial arts, and then there was the rest of it, There was nothing fancy. There was nothing crazy.
Yeah. This is a great sequence. So I was raised on musicals, so this is a tiny little musical sequence here. Is just, I do appreciate it because it's done really well.
Yes. And there's the sequences, I think it's really useful. It's showing the stuff that he does. Oh, this scene though. The use of Adolf Hitler, which I swore for a second that was going to be that was freaking Adam Baldwin the first time I saw this. It wasn't. But they actually drop some lore in the later TV show She-Hulk, saying that he got a girlfriend during this time and that he was very popular with the ladies, but he kind of hated himself for it.
I think I remember a line about that in She-Hulk that I did not like.
Yeah.
But
the creation of these propaganda films, which America did, Germany also did them.
Oh yeah.
If you ever watched Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards, you would kind of know about that. There's something. His punching Hitler was like a recreation of one of the original Captain America covers from the 1940s. Like the first appearance of Bucky was him punching Hitler just like that.
I do want to know what his plan is. He's a Star-Spangled Man with a plan, but what's the plan? Is it just to beat Hitler? Or, is there more of a plan?
He's just instilling trust from the U.S. government.
Yeah. I
love that they also found a way to include his actual original costume from the comics.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
And it looks just as bad as it should.
Yeah. It looks like felt. There's a good transition here, though. I mean, to just...
Bring back the girls.
I think they only know the one song. Oh, gosh. Well, again, I love his boots, by the way. The actual, the fold-over tops, they look like, your classic, the Princess Bride boots.
And this feels like something soldiers would actually do.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, soldiers even in the 40s were not saints.
No, I don't think soldiers have ever been any form of saints.
No. Yeah, this is all the men in that group would have wanted to see. They wouldn't have cared about him. Although I do love the in-between costume where he's wearing his, but he the leather jacket we see in a little while, and the helmet, that whole look. I think it's a fantastic kind of in between before he gets his proper uniform later in the film.
Yeah. I love the costuming in this movie.
Oh yeah. Interesting too that she's, I don't know, just their interaction here. This conversation is good because he doesn't like what he does, but he's trying to make the most of it. But she's doing a good job, just kind of feeling like she doesn't like what he's been doing, but at the same time still is kind of trying. I don't know. There's some nuance in the scene that I feel like is really good between the two of them.
I was going to bring that up also. I think that this is one of the best scenes in the entire movie, because this sells the relationship to me. It shows, like you said, he's trying to make the best of the situation. I love that he's drawing. I love that he has these little things that's one of the things that you don't see in stuff like Captain Marvel or the Marvels that I think would have really helped in building the character of Captain Marvel to make her more likable. She doesn't do anything that's not on mission. She doesn't have any hobbies. She doesn't have any fun. And I like it when you can have a character where they develop extra skills. And it's not important to the story. It's just because they're people.
Yeah.
He's got a little book and he draws, and that's great. But yeah, just all that.
Yeah, it's well he's more than he has more than 2 dimensions to his character. You need 3. And those little tiny
Yeah.
things, you're right, they do actually help.
Like, I remember in Iron Man, right, when he's taking apart his car, and it's obvious that that's when he's the most happy, is when he's working on his car. That's when you see him become his own self.
Yeah.
Um,
I do love Tommy Lee Jones. He's very subtle
Yeah.
in this scene, but he has a way of always conveying just a he's an authority figure. He can be sympathetic, but in that very kind of old school man way, where he never would show it too much. But it's like there in his eyes. Calls him a chorus girl.
chorus girl.
You got to be somewhere. Yeah, it's just it's a good transition because you've established he has history with that unit in general. That's where Bucky is. I mean, there's his motivations for going against orders here is very understandable and reasonable.
My mom has used that line. If you have something to say right now is the perfect time to keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And I've used that line on my mom and gotten hit for it.
Nice.
Not actually. She's not abusive. I deserved it, though.
Yeah. I love his jacket.
This is the moment where it's just like, you see it where he becomes like the hero that you want him to be, He doesn't just sit back and accept it. He actually he does something. He takes the risk.
Yeah.
Because, people who actually have big effects in the world, they make risky choices.
Yeah.
And they really show that off here in a way that I like.
Yeah. Well, and they literally were like quite literally at the middle of the film. I like that. Yeah. That they take the time. And also, this is a minor thing. I like that they let Carter, when she's out in the rain, like look a little bit like she's been out in the rain. They don't try to maintain this like fake facade of her looking perfect all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he looks good. I know I brought that up several times already, but and his old shield, which is the fact that he sticks with it.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
There's.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just trying to remember one of those actresses, who was one of the backup dancers, went on to do some cool things, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Continue.
I don't remember either. Yeah. It's a very.
Does he really think that fondue is supposed to be sex?
I think he truly is like so inept in the kind of the ways of euphemisms and
But She-Hulk implied that he was having sex. Did flat out said that he was having sex during this time.
And I mean, they did hint it
that
he kind of made eye contact with one of the girls earlier, but I have a hard time. It's my own headcanon that was he perfect or a saint? No, of course he wasn't. But I don't think he was like had a girl at every city while he was touring kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous.
Mm.
I actually don't know the answer.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the whole was he a virgin or whatever. It's I mean, I appreciate the humor of it, but anyway. Okay.
Well, that She-Hulk was supposed to be a deconstruction, but it was kind of a failed deconstruction.
Yeah. I do like the design on this factory, like these big old, like kind of evocative of coils, which is very, generally understood as being power, power, the average person understands that. But the larger scale. So I guess the idea is that they're just like charging these things, right? They're just building these essentially batteries of various sizes and just charge them off the Tesseract.
Well, do you remember later in the movie when it blows up, when what's his face is experimenting with it and it blows up his containment case?
Yeah.
I think the implication is that each one of those is an explosive device. If you're thinking about it, those aren't batteries. They're building the bombs from the end of the movie that's designed to be as powerful as a nuke.
So then what powers like the guns and stuff?
The Tesseract, or smaller versions of that.
That's what I mean. Like, is it they're charging something up?
You're talking about like a power cell,
Yeah, yeah.
essentially. But
Yeah.
if you rupture a power cell, it's like a bomb.
Yes.
But the difference is, like, you have a gun power cell, it's going to be a grenade. You have power cells, the size of old disk drives, old hard drives, like those ones. That's going to be the size, the power of a large C4. You put enough of that together, and
But that's what I
bada
mean.
bing, bada boom, you can knock a city off the map.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, it's they're using the Tesseract to basically charge up all of these, whether they're using them for explosives, bombs, or power sources for firearms, is all being charged by the. I do love how kind of Indiana Jones-esque the whole aesthetic here is, just sneaking in.
So much.
It makes sense. It's a good movie to follow theme with.
Oh yeah, well, and they really let the action gags like speak for themselves as far as being just like little bits of funny, but without like pointing it out. If that makes sense, it's not like they like linger on it and they see what we just did there. It's so funny. They kind of let them happen and move right on, which makes them more effective.
Yeah, they don't quip about it.
No, this is not a super quippy film.
No, it has its little moments, but that's all you need. So, you know what's really funny? They were going to have this whole sequence in it, or not this whole sequence. I think that it probably evolved into this sequence, but part of the prison camp raid idea was from previous versions of the script when they were working with this movie in conjunction with 20th Century Fox. Do you know what they were going to include in this movie?
No.
Wolverine and Magneto.
Oh, I have heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. He's like smart enough to be like, I'm gonna grab one of these. These look interesting.
Yeah. But that was fascinating to me because it would have worked really well.
I think if they'd had the rights, right? That there's a version of that definitely could have been cool.
Yeah, did you know that Joss Whedon actually has some rewriting credits in this movie?
Really? Was it to make it flow with the Avengers better, or?
Correct. So here we have the introduction of the Howling Commandos, which is this. They never call them that, but
I'm from Fresno.
For those not understanding, it's a reference to the fact that we were at war with Japan, and he looks very Japanese. In fact, the actor is Japanese. And the actor reappears. Okay, this is what I'm talking about when this movie has so many connections to the wider MCU. That actor reappears in Spider-Man Homecoming. And some other moments, some deleted scenes from Spider-Man Homecoming, as the principal of Peter Parker's school. And behind him is a picture and a medal of his grandfather who served in World War II. And it's the same character he plays in this one.
Nice.
Several of these characters also reappear in the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., such as Dum Dum Dugan, the French gentleman here. And the black actor has a character who is supposed to be his ancestor.
Yeah.
Also.
I appreciate that it's once he sees Steve that he like actually goes to like, never mind, we're not gonna pull this one off.
Yeah.
So I love the Howling Commandos, the little bit that they get in this film. I wish we had gotten, I don't know, like that's a Marvel a Disney Plus show that would have been cool. It would have been expensive being a period show, but
no, there was a plan for it. They wanted to do a Howling Commandos spinoff thing. There were a couple things. They talked about doing the Warriors 3 and the Howling Commandos, and I saw somebody. The pitch was really good, actually, but it was essentially like, what if you actually had this merging of worlds, funny buddy cop group thing that is literally the Howling Commandos and the Warriors 3.
That would have been fun.
But they wanted to do more. They talked about doing a TV show for it. They incorporated them into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and into Agent Carter in big and small ways.
Yeah, there was an episode of Agent Carter where she goes over, right, and gets their help with something. I vaguely remember that.
Uh-huh. And there's a big flashback in the second season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where it shows Agent Carter and the Howling Commandos, filmed right around the same time as Agent Carter, finding Terrigen crystals, which are the power creation source of the Inhumans.
I don't know what it is. The flipping style dial, like the flaps, the number flaps. It has always been an aesthetic that's cool.
And here we have this moment of like, they know each other. They've seen each other.
It's finding Bucky. It is a little convenient that he was right here and in a very short amount of time, but I still just love that they get him back together and they let them have a moment here.
Yeah, it's necessary, and this is the beginning of Bucky's trauma because he's traumatized.
Oh, yeah. The dude's been through a lot.
Yeah, he has. He has had a time.
I love that he's like, I thought you were small.
Yeah. That was good.
I love Sebastian Stan. He is so great.
He's a fantastic actor.
I would say that he deserves more in the MCU, but he is kind of getting his own movie now with the Thunderbolts. They spoiler warning for Captain America 4. Brave New World, he has a cameo in that, which implies that his character doesn't imply, it flat out says his character's running for Congress. Like, dang.
It's weird.
But I wish that they had decided to make him one of the big new faces of the MCU post-Endgame, and they kind of flopped on that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't work, but he should have and could have been used way better in that show. He's a caliber of actor.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's at the time of recording, he's nominated for an Academy Award. He's a fantastic actor in his own right, and his portrayal of this character has been great.
He's like a mid-level method actor. He doesn't go like full Daniel Day-Lewis, Jared Leto, but he gets into it, and it shows in his performances. He studied the show Band of Brothers for this and actually like spoke with veterans and historians and stuff. Like he went hardcore researching for this role.
I love just this very simple, they both, it's kind of the sizing each other up and then trading a blow here and there. And just the kind of mutual respect right away of like, okay, this is, I think the understanding they're both like kind of even in power level, right? Because physically, aren't they like almost identical? As far as their physical potential?
Yeah. I adore the Red Skull's costuming. It is such a good, like, comic book, villainous, Nazi-esque thing. It's great.
It's a great line. They did a good job, too. I mean, good.
No, you keep going.
Oh, I was going to say, I know that behind the scenes, seeing that they did a ton of makeup work. And then obviously had to CG his nose, and then they did some work around the eyes and some color grading on the makeup. But really good job transforming Hugo Weaving into the Red Skull and having it be about 80% practical.
Yeah. Big missed opportunity for the new Captain America in that they didn't bring up the idea, the fact that the Hulk was researching how to recreate the Erskine formula. And so, like, the incredible... so the Hulk is kind of based on Captain America's super soldier serum. And then they bring in the Red Hulk into the new Captain America movie. And they don't mention this idea that he's possibly red because it's a less stable formula, similar to the one that created the Red Skull. That just would have been a great little callback. It would have only taken like a line, but no.
Yeah, there's many things wrong with that film, but it's like they created this getaway plane for him. This is only used in this shot, but it's awesome. Again, it's just like the aesthetic. I feel like the creative, the art team for this film, they just had a good time. Production design, that's the word. Because there's so many one-off, tanks, vehicles, the guns, the design of the base, all that stuff. It's just, and it all seamlessly looks like it came out of the same creative mind, which it should have.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a little bit of that, convenient, we just do something crazy, then cut immediately to it all worked out just fine moment here. But I feel like they did, like, the moment's kind of over. They had the confrontation. Red Skull's out. He found Bucky. You don't need a big, from here, there's really nothing else to do, so I don't mind it. But it is definitely a little bit of a cliche action beat to just magically have it be all fine off screen.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of it either. I think that the effect was a little funny. But at the same time, I mean, what were they going to do? Have him, like, land and be like, okay, let's go, buddy, and then cut away?
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's the
it
best
works.
way out.
Yeah, it absolutely works. Because the scene has concluded doing anything useful for the story, which is important. It's important to know when to stop in an action scene.
Brevite.
You are neither one.
He's so mean.
I do. It's a good conversation here too. The idea of like Crush versus Faith, and again, I think that Tommy Lee Jones, he walks a good line of being kind of a classic 1940s hard ass, very kind of chauvinistic and internal, but at the same time, he does like the line about you've got a bunch of people killed, and that does matter. Like ultimately, the loss of life matters to him.
You really feel that he cares about the weight of his position.
Yeah. Oh, that theme. Is this
it's
the
first time
like,
you really hear it?
Yeah, but to say this is like the open clear of the theme, and it's good.
Yeah. And it is what turned into the Avengers theme. It is that just proper march.
I also appreciate that this both works for Cap's character, but also it's not a stretch, because when he goes up here in a second to the Colonel, is like I'm giving myself up for any corrective action, and then Tommy Lee Jones going no, because in the middle of war, showing some guts and succeeding, even if it's crazy, did land you continued like work. Half the time you got promoted. Is in wartime, crazy when it works usually gets awarded a medal and a promotion. So
also, if you're sitting around and all of these men are cheering for your hero, the last freaking thing you're gonna do is arrest him.
Yeah.
Like, what's that gonna do for morale? There's no heroes if you persecute heroes.
Yeah. But there are so many examples in World War II of actual, guys doing, stuff that was even, technically contrary to orders. But when it works out, they get celebrated because you need that. You were saying.
Yeah. Dude, Captain America. And she's just genuinely so stinking attractive.
Oh, yeah. But she also
I have a
definitely
type, by the way, and it's pretty much her.
She does fit very nicely into that 1940s beauty, though. Also, I mean, she's she's very beautiful by modern standards, but she fits the aesthetic of the woman of this era, also.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure those marine dress blues are not period accurate.
Let me see here. I didn't take a good look at them.
Well, the classic with the blue jacket, the white pants. I'm pretty sure the Marines didn't switch to that particular one until later, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Back under Brooklyn here?
Yeah. No, not Brooklyn. That was England.
It's London. I'm sorry, yeah. They wouldn't be all the way back in America.
Yeah, Brooklyn and London. So similar.
No, they're not.
There's rumors that Edgar Wright actually did some rewrites on this film, though it's been denied every step of the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because he was currently writing Ant-Man. Ant-Man was supposed to be part of Phase 1.
That's right.
Okay. Have you gone into the casting of Captain America at all?
Not deeply, other than kind of the main few. I mean, I know about Chris Evans turning it down several times and having to kind of be talked into it by a combination of actually having Robert Downey Jr. talk to him a little bit, and Who was it? Actually, Joe Johnson that came and talked to him and kind of ran him through like what they were going to do.
Yeah, because he really wanted him. But they had there was a version where it was actually going to be Will Smith, where it was being written for Will Smith. This was back in like 2004 when it was like the height of Will Smith's career. But for this movie, they tested everybody. Like Sam Worthington, Garrett Hedlund, Channing Tatum, Sebastian Stan, Chris Evans, John Krasinski, Jensen Ackles, Alexander Skarsgård, that other guy. There was somebody else that was big that they considered, but also all of these others who less people would recognize, such as Winston Bethel, Scott Porter, Mike Vogel, Chad Michael Murray, Michael Cassidy, Chance Crawford, Derek Deller. I don't know who any of those people are. I'm so sorry, but they went through all of these different people, and it Matthew Fox. That was the other one. Matthew Fox.
Yeah, from Lost.
From Lost.
Would have been interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
but I mean,
also Wyatt Russell.
Oh yeah, who
went on to become
agent, U.S. agent.
Yeah.
But it's Chris Evans really did. He really did hit the balance of funny, earnest, the physicality. Obviously, he has that look. I did not realize until I was watching one different behind the scenes that he has a wig on for this entire movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't want to have to do his hair all the time.
Yeah. But considering he had already done so much comic book stuff and hadn't, it's interesting that this is a comic book film, but it kind of also established his reputation as being more of a serious actor.
Yeah. Did really well at it. I think that he had like 4. This is like his 4th comic book character.
Yeah, because he did. He did obviously Fantastic Four, one of the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
He did The Losers, which was based on a comic book movie, and then he did Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is also a comic book movie. So
that was it, Scott Pilgrim.
Okay, Howard Stark could be dead right there. Just saying. Enough force to
callback in Avengers Endgame when Tony Stark is putting together the Infinity Gauntlet. They echo that same shot.
Yeah.
Another here we have
Game of Thrones. Yeah, another Game of Thrones actress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forget the name of the actress, but she's one of these people who has a actual, very similar to Sylvester Stallone. She has a slight deformation to her mouth that kind of gives it that trademark smirk.
Well, she goes on to have a role in, I think, the last Hunger Game movie also, with that
last two.
That like half buzz cut thing that was like big for a year or 2 there.
It was really big, and she rocked it. I'm not even a big fan of her, but she actually looked good on that one.
Yeah.
Did you know that Emily Blunt turned down the role of Peggy Carter?
I love Haley Atwell. Emily Blunt could have done that also, for sure.
Mm-hmm. They also considered Gemma Ackerton and Keira Knightley.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Not Keira. I don't think so. She's not badass enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. She did well in The Pirates. But I think having the kind of classic curvaceous beauty that is Haley Atwell was a better choice.
Yeah. I appreciate that she's not like stick thin.
Yeah. It just wouldn't have been right, you know? Call me a misogynist or whatever, I don't know. But she looks like a pinup. And I think it's perfect for this era.
Yeah, no, she's great.
Yeah.
The look that she gives Steve there, of just kind of like annoyed, like you're an idiot. Like she's not mad. She's just like, you're such an idiot still.
Yeah.
Okay. The shields are interesting here.
Right.
And like I was bike in the back there.
Bike in the back.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They almost get kind of like their Q moment here with Howard Stark.
I think that it was like a callback to Q.
Well, they're even in England, so.
Yeah. Like, look at these things.
Oh,
I've
so
got a gun.
bad.
Spikes. Electrical relays.
So,
like, Think about it. The most iconic part of the movie, and it doesn't even appear until an hour and 20 minutes in.
Yeah. Why would they have made it into a shield if it's all they had? I'm just curious.
It's possible that was the original form.
Like straight from Wakanda to in that form.
Yeah, could have been.
Oh.
4 shots. That's a 1911, 45.
Yep.
I like the detail of the little
The little
striations
marks.
on the shield.
Well, I love the fact that the shield, even though it's pretty much invulnerable, the paint job's not.
Yeah.
Like his shield looks so good with a little bit of wear and tear on it.
Yeah, like right there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at this. Okay, so he's using 1911. We've got a trench sweeper, Sten gun, Thompson, and that looks like a thingy.
Yeah.
Name went right out of my head.
Yeah, they do use a decent amount of slow-mo in this montage, but I feel like it's just held back enough to be very, like, again, kind of like comic panels. Like, there's so many you could just pause them and print them in this montage that you could build a comic book. Like, this almost looks like it could be a comic book issue as it goes through this montage.
Yeah, this is a pretty movie.
And I know that with the throwing, a lot of that wasn't that actually like Chris Evans basically kind of creating this is how I would throw it and kind of working with that on set. Because a lot of the shield flying is obviously CG.
Yeah. Well, the way that they did the shield is they had several different versions of it. They had, by the way, that was actually a real tactic that was used by certain French partisans. Very dangerous, but effective.
Oh, yeah.
But, what was I going to say? So they have a shield. They had a bunch of different versions. They had a fully aluminum shield. They had a rubber shield. They had a plastic shield and a CGI shield.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say something about this scene really fast before I finish that. That right there. Okay. That right there is an M1941 Johnson. That is a semi-automatic rifle. So them doing the little, like, ejecting the thing, it didn't need that. He just wasted a bullet.
Yeah.
Always bugged me.
Okay. This shot, though. The shot where he throws the shield right at the screen, and then this one are like, trailer shots for sure, but they do look good.
Mm-hmm. They look really good.
Well, they get the color grading so well. Like his head, it pops so well against the war damage.
Yeah, but the shield, what they would do is they would actually have him throw the shield, and then refilm it motion controlled and then CG the shield in, so that way they could kind of like figure out how he would use it and how he would throw it. Very smart way of doing it.
Oh yeah. They get right to this. I mean, so you get a montage, and then the first time I saw this, I didn't really catch the idea that Red Skull basically was putting it on Zolov, that it was like his job to take out Cap, like his responsibility to come up with the plan. And it's interesting that he actually was on this train, even though it was a trap. He still got on it, which is interesting to me because he seems like the kind of guy who would have made it seem like he was there, but have stayed in hiding somewhere.
I don't necessarily know if it was supposed to be like an actual trap though, or if they were just ready for him. Like, that's just how he always traveled. Yeah, this type of stuff, this isn't exactly it, but they based a lot of these tactics and looks and stuff on operations pulled off by the very early British Special Forces.
Yeah. Well, you had early. Is it MI5 or 6? And then I mean, so
I was actually thinking of the Special Boat Service.
Yeah. Well, the SAS. When was that created?
That's the Special Air Service. Well, it started as this special boat service that started during World War II, in which
Okay.
a guy claimed that small groups of super skilled soldiers would be the best way to do it. And this one guy said, no, that's it was an admiral, said, no, that's stupid. And he went, okay. So this guy pretty much went and broke into the admiral's office in the middle of the night after coming from a completely different ship and waking him up in his room and saying, well, what do you think now? And they gave him the funding, and he formed the Special Boat Service.
Okay. I mean, it's realistic because it's a Thompson to a certain extent, but the fact that Bucky, I mean, I love that he blows through all of his ammo because people have way too much ammo in movies, but there's a lot of, it's just one guy down there.
Yeah, but let me tell you, the Thompson sucks.
No, but
I
it looks
love
so
the look
cool.
of it. It's classic. It does. It is an awful firearm.
Oh no, I know you're right. It's just I always hate the fact that it's actually not that good.
Right. It's heavy. It gets hot. It burns through ammo. It's inaccurate. Like, it's so sad. But yeah, they really make Bucky seem kind of unstable almost.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole movie, he always looks like he's just on the edge. And I wonder if they were thinking ahead to a Winter Soldier thing and they wanted to like tie that in. But yeah. And then that's a straight up reference to the fact that he would one day become Captain America. After Steve Rogers died in the comics, the Winter Soldier took it up and became like a rogue Captain America. Which then went back to Steve Rogers, which then, when he retired again after the Super Soldier Serum wore off,
How did Bucky survive that?
He landed in the snow.
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate that they did not drag that out because that was pretty fast. I mean, so often in film when they have a character about to die or fall, that they let it just hang for way too long. And I appreciate that they didn't have Bucky just like this whole thing there. It was fast, which, I mean, again, in real war, you lose your friend in seconds, and that's what happened to millions of people in that war. So,
yeah, very much so. This is like one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Oh yeah,
like this is good. This comes right out of any political thriller, you know.
Well, a good interrogation scene is just, love when he looks down in the second he sees the blood and like, I don't want to be in this room.
Right? Like, this is not a place where civilized men go.
It's also like the perfect 1940s meal. Just, oh goodness.
Boiled potatoes, boiled
broccoli.
steamed broccoli, and steak.
And a cup of milk.
Fried.
Gotta have that glass of milk. If you're not gonna have a beer, right? Anyways.
Right.
But this is also just like the acting in the scene is so good. You got two just world-class actors here, just sharing a conversation, verbal sparring.
The rumbly tummy too. Dude, meat rationing though during World War II was insane.
Yeah, this would have been a super treat. That's why if like he's not going to eat it, it makes total sense. The colonel would be like, "Well, I'm going to eat it then. I haven't had a steak in a long time."
Right. There was a Looney Tunes that was talking about like things during World War II, and they kind of make fun of it a little bit. And one of it was this lady going up to a meat counter, paying the guy meat, and he pulls out this nice juicy steak, and she just gets to smell it.
They really also the lighting in the scene, they have that direct, intense light right down on top of Zolov, shining off his head.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy Lee Jones is a little bit more, he's half in the shadow kind of there, and it's just it's a well shot scene, it's a well acted scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's when it's shot, it's super classic. It's just back and forth, like nothing super special, down a little bit low, but it just it's very effective.
Yeah. One of the things that I always noticed, like I remember being in the theaters watching it, is especially prevalent in one of the previous scenes, was having Zola, like his jaw was shaking a little bit. He's moving it to the side. These just kind of little movements that are completely unnecessary, but it makes you really sell that this is somebody who is anxious.
Yeah, I love that series of lines right there. The sanity of the plan is of no consequence because he can do it. It's just like that says so much. It's a great line.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, the sanity of the plan is of no consequence. Just think about that for a minute, because he can do it. Like, have you seen the joke on this scene?
No, I
Where,
have not.
because they're using a clear alcohol, they dub it to where he's talking about the benefits of drinking water and staying properly hydrated.
I have to find that now. I love you said his costuming. I love his costuming again. This outfit's great. All these Hydra guys with their goggles.
Mm-hmm.
No, man.
Because, like, he lifts up the thing. He's like, prevent headaches and fatigue. Hail hydrate.
Well, he turns though, and I mean, I love you only had like those 8 or 10 guys, and then you turn and get these guys.
What was that, Pat?
Yeah, Pat, what was that?
Oh, just hail hydrate, dude. That's hilarious.
Yeah. This is another little scene here that's just great. Go ahead though.
One thing that I missed is that in the previous scene in this same bar when it was whole, and she's in that red dress, and damn that red dress, the bartender was actually the skinny body double.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was.
I was gonna print that out. I forgot.
I'm so glad that they gave us a scene of Steve. You know, you're keeping this still kind of, you know, in the comics. You know, you get a little more information about the serum, but you needed a scene where he had to have at least one scene where he was grieving Bucky. If they hadn't done it, it would have felt very out of place.
Yeah, he's grieving Bucky. It also gives you more realness between him and her. It gives you more reality between Steve and Peggy.
Yeah. Well, and it builds their relationship. It's because, I mean, you asked earlier about their relationship. I think all these moments are what sell it to me. Because, like I said, they don't get a kiss till the very end. They don't really have. I mean, the closest you get is she's a little jealous when he's kissing what's her face from Game of Thrones, you know, and she has that little like ooh when he comes out of the, you know, the chamber. But their relationship takes time, and that's part of what makes it work for me.
Yeah, which is why I think it's like the most important romantic relationship in the whole MCU, because you realize just like their love story is the ending shot of Endgame.
Yeah.
Like this 22 movie long arc. And the very, very, very last shot is of the two of them together. That's huge.
Oh, it is huge. But I think it's smart because you're ending on something, and maybe it is a little bit overly sappy or whatever, but ultimately people connect with human stories. And a relationship that you always wished you could have had and never got is just it's a universal story. And I
think his connection to her is just so prominent and important throughout all of the movies. It's worth noting that.
And I think it also speaks to the power of the final line of this film. You know, of just, you know, I had a date. Yeah. It's just it's delivered really well. It's so poignant. That scene is great. To pay that off, yeah, I love it. I love the ending of Endgame.
I like these bikes. Nice little retrofuturism bikes.
Oh yeah.
And for some reason, he's got flamethrowers.
Oh, why not?
They come out of the back.
Got the Wilhelm scream. Yep. This is very Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I mean, obviously not exactly, but just the whole motorcycle chase with Nazis, you know?
Yeah. I like the shield on the front, just, you know, a little extra protection. Oh, this poor bike.
No, they're good. It's a good scene here, though.
Uh-huh.
This,
like, I actually thought Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of the action scenes are very reminiscent of in Winter Soldier, when he's fighting through the helicarrier and everything. You kind of in between, boxes and military equipment, just kind of dodging through them and beating guys up. I mean, they use this structure for action scenes with him quite often.
I think he's on a motorcycle in every single one of his movies in some sort of action sequence.
Well, he looks darn good riding the Harley with no helmet in Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah. In Winter Soldier,
he's in
he's
the Avengers.
no. Well, I mean, he rides in Avengers also, but in Winter Soldier, he's like riding home from at the very beginning when he meets Nick Fury, and he's just cruising up, and just he looks good on that bike.
Mm-hmm.
The classic jeans and white T-shirt, just looks good.
Arrogance isn't a uniquely American trait, but they certainly do it better than anyone.
And as an American, I can't disagree with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this costume change on Red Skull, where he's like more casual almost? He almost looks like a 1930s, 1940s cop that's gonna like stride in and beat up a suspect.
Yeah, the whole kind of like dress shirt with like suspenders. I love this line. I mean, this is a classic. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. Oh.
Mm-hmm. And I love that they carry that through into the other movies. Like that's how he kind of bonds briefly with Spider-Man. Queens, Brooklyn.
Okay, was the plan here? Because I mean, this is definitely like perfect timing. Obviously, that just like letting him get in and kind of giving them a false sense of security, like they stopped him so they could kind of let their guard down. I'm assuming is the writers thinking here.
I think so. I think that I bet there's a deleted scene or something like that. That would have explained that as they're putting together the plan or whatever, that he knows that the Red Skull is going to want to meet and size up the man who Erskine chose over him. At least that's how I could see it.
Yeah, it makes sense. The these hallways do look a little bit similar. I mean, it makes sense that they would, but it's I think part of this sequence does get lost in a little bit of generic, just guys being vaporized in hallways. But at the same time, Cap's pursuit and like his Cap's story is good, and you do need these, the soldiers coming in. The fact that he's not alone, he's getting help. I appreciate all that.
Yeah. But yeah, they're definitely pulling a Star Trek.
Yeah.
Where wow, all these hallways look similar because they have like the same two hallways available. They just redress them.
The poor soldiers. He just vaporized like 10 of them there.
Yeah. Let's go find 2 more. Yeah. It's
okay. And
ding dunk.
That thing does not obey the laws of physics at all.
No, it does not.
You get the I appreciate that they've established that Carter is a very capable field agent already in this movie multiple times. So I like that they give her a little moment to kind of not save him particularly, but definitely help him out quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of the way that she fires the Thompson. It's a little bit 1930s, but
yeah,
whatever.
I like that they had a little detail. The shield literally had chunks dug out of both the doors it was wedged into.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Actually, I think that's like the first time I've ever noticed that.
Yeah.
Loading up.
Yep. Time to go.
And loaded.
Classic I wonder if
chair.
Yeah, I feel like they might have had him in this outfit also because to do his action scene, it was just a little bit easier to have him in an outfit that was easier to move in. So just being nice to the stunt guys.
I think so too.
I love
this plane.
I love this plane. I mean, it's so straight out of the whole, the flying wing, which was such a big deal at this time. It also was very the Germans absolutely had conceptual, planes that they were working on in the flying wing style, and then through the the 50s and 60s we kept working on it, and we to this day have the B2. I mean, I love that the big front window is cool. The combination of propellers and the jet engines. I mean, I love it. Now, this is definitely a case of what's that runway and back in Fast and the Furious, like 5 or 6.
7.
That's like 50 miles long if you actually do the math.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's as egregious as that one, but it's definitely a little bit up there. There's got to be a deleted scene of the two of them stealing the car.
I'm sure. I do like that they use the car one more time. It's a cool, there we go.
Nice.
I love the
nice.
I'm not kissing you. Oh, good. You got a good propeller moment here.
Does the propeller actually?
Yeah.
Does the propeller hit the shield?
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Okay,
Yep.
I couldn't remember.
And the car too.
Okay, you know what? You were right. This runway.
Yeah. Well, because they
long.
they had a shot earlier where they showed like the opening, not that far in front of them, and they had time for like the kiss, the propeller. I'm not kissing you. All that stuff.
The awkward silence. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, so many movies have done it. It's not like you can get mad at this movie for also doing it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, you would need a huge runway in order to get that thing off the ground.
Yeah.
But
can you imagine the construction
the
project in that mountain to do all that? Oh my gosh.
You would have to start with something natural.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he would have had the Tesseract long enough to just sit there and be like, blast, 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 blast. Of course, it's going to be in English, too.
Yeah, that's a good point. So at first, I thought these were bombs, and I didn't realize that they were little, like, planes until later.
They are bombs.
Well, they're both? That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, they're plane bombs. And these fanatics, because that's why these guys were separated from the rest of the Hydra army. These are the fanatics. These are the guys who are going to go kill themselves for the Red Skull.
Oh, way to go!
Right?
I feel like they could have done the Wilhelm scream. Yeah, I feel like they could have had the Wilhelm scream in that one.
But like some of this has one of those moments in it that is truly shocking to me.
Really?
For like an MCU thing, for like the
propeller.
It's just the propeller. Like,
and then
that
they
was
like
freaking brutal, dude.
Well, they get the propeller, and then they even cut to the wide shot where they see the mist coming off the back of it in the second shot.
No, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I was expecting something kind of like Indiana Jones, where it's like a cutaway, but no, they lean into it.
Ooh, there it is. Oh yeah, they go for it.
I remember I gasped in the movies, and then they kind of do it in the second one too. Kicking a guy into a propeller like that.
Would they have? Does it make sense that they would have launched these so soon? Wouldn't if they wanted to get this plane closer to America? I mean, they've been in the air for a few minutes.
If I was writing it, all right, and I wanted to get past that, I would have written it so that they have all the fuel that they need because they've got these power cells. But they wouldn't want to risk being detected by these new American radar systems, so they would want to launch it as close as possible. But with a super soldier who is proven so troublesome on board, it's better to launch them sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
That's how I would justify it behind the scenes.
Yeah, makes sense. I do appreciate that they keep consistent with both the wear and tear on his shield as it gets worse and worse, and that he's taking some hits and they don't like clean that up magically.
Yeah. This fight scene that they've got coming. Okay.
I was just really quickly gonna ask you. We never talked about it. What do you think of the kind of final version of his costume in this film, the uniform?
I think it's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it captures the essence of the costume of the comics. But it also has a practicality to it in terms of body armor, while also making him a very distinct symbol.
Yeah.
I
appreciate that it wasn't skin tight.
Making it seem like something you could, it's something you could actually fight in a war and survive. And of all of the superhero costumes, I think it would probably be the most comfortable.
Oh yeah, but you can see as he moves, like his shoulders actually have some room to move. It looks like it would keep you warm and actually have room for that Kevlar underweave that Howard Stark told him about.
I love this. I think that this was really smart. It makes this fight scene really unique as to suddenly throw in this zero-G element.
Yeah, which is totally realistic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't use the word totally realistic.
Well, I mean,
really specific angles, but it's realistic enough to go, oh yeah, because they can actually do that, and it gives the fight some personality.
Yeah. I like the little bit of speech here too. Just that Red Skull really does think of himself as above the nations fighting, cultures fighting, that it's, being escalated into something even more, I don't know, just, I like that the Red Skull is truly motivated by, like, just pure and utter arrogance and superiority complex. Okay.
I also like that there's an essence of realism in the idea that somebody as smart as him and as advanced as him and as powerful as him would come to the conclusion that the future is doomed, kind of. There are no flags.
Yeah.
Like, that in order for humanity to truly progress, you would have to rise above the pettiness of individualist nations and such, because it is slightly real from a purely Machiavellian nature, you know? Not Machiavellian, Darwinian. But I love that you see him kind of disintegrate, but not.
Yeah.
There's just enough room to be like, did he go somewhere? Especially post Thor.
Yeah.
Where people would go like, was that the Bifrost?
Yeah. Great trick.
I don't know. Was it the Bifrost?
So I have a quick question. Minor thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an inconsistency with the Tesseract going through the bottom of the plane there, but we've seen it be in wood containers, picked up by metal objects, grabbed by Howard Stark underwater a little bit later, that kind of stuff?
No, I don't think that's an inconsistency. Like, in the Avengers, you see after it's used to summon Loki, that, like, it burns Nick Fury's hand a little bit as he's putting it into the little case. I think you can easily infer that after it uses a ton of power, like fueling this whole thing, this whole plane, and shooting Red Skull up to Vorag, that it's overpowered. And so it's really hot and it's burning through things. I think that that's consistent, if inferred.
I love two things about this scene. It was very smart to take his helmet off. And I love that when Peggy starts talking to him, that you see Tommy Lee Jones's character kind of motion to the other crew member, like give her space. Like, he knows. He's an experienced soldier. He knows this is not going to end well, and to give her a moment here. And I just, it's a little touch for his character in the background. But also, this is just a great scene. Both of them are great in this. Just him pulling the compass out. She's acting so well. Just, this is the first time you see her, and it makes sense. She's had the kiss. There's kind of been that moment of, this could have actually been something. There's a real tragedy here that's done really well by the actors. But I also appreciate that Steve is not like, there's not like this hesitancy here. It's not like he struggles with this choice. He's very honest here and earnest, and just, but at the same time, fully engaged in, this is what I got to do. And again, the music is so good here.
Yeah. It is. Her acting is phenomenal. Like, she makes me tear up. And I think part of that is the fact that she's played the character so straight and so strong that to see her break now adds to the heartbreak. And yeah, everything about this scene is great. Yeah. I love that he takes his helmet off. I love the look of Captain America when he doesn't have his helmet on. You know, Winter Soldier's fight scene with Batroc and the elevator and stuff like that. It's a good look.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just talking through it. This is like, it's focusing on her. It doesn't show it.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. It's just one last little moment here with Tommy Lee Jones, just like, and he doesn't know, just lets her be, which makes sense again for his character. And just, yeah, like you said, she's being vulnerable for the first time. And I mean, that's a very classic shot there, kind of, the wide shot of her and, alone, just to emphasize that she's alone in that moment. But, man, this is also just beautiful. The snow and the plane and the sun and the music again. This is
also,
just...
It also has the shape that calls back to the beginning of the movie. So you know what you're looking at because you saw the shape earlier and it's in the ice. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, they even kind of transition it here a little bit, to right there. And I love that it's this tiny little... This is all you need as a little ending montage of just the war's over. You see the Howling Commandos, and you get that... I love the scene coming up with the boys, and the one's got the shield. I mean, it's a call back to earlier when the boys are playing baseball when he's on his way to get the serum.
Yeah, that's very Joe Johnston.
Oh yeah, but yeah. So he's got Howard Johnson, Howard Stark.
They probably only have a Howard Johnson's. So I love his costume and this, like the coat and the thing, and it's like he looks like he's walking out of freaking King Kong.
Oh yeah.
It's so brief, but I love it.
Yeah. That's where I wish Agent Carter had more life, and they had done a little more of the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D., because there's so much there. I mean, gosh, everything that was going on. I mean, you got a little bit of that in the flashback and Endgame. Well, not the flashback. When they go back in time in Endgame, you obviously get a little bit of that in Captain Marvel. And
what if fully explores her as like a female Captain America?
Yeah.
Great episode. Good character that they used multiple times, and they had talked about actually doing a full Captain Carter movie based on Multiverse of Madness's appearance. Of all of their random ass weird spin-offs, I would have loved to see it.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a lot of fun.
The theme right there in the shield, it's just I mean, it is. It's pure like 40s camp, and it's awesome with the boys playing in the street. And the theme and everything.
I thought that's where they were going to end the movie. I genuinely thought that the credits were going to roll right now.
Well, I feel there's a way they could have had the credits roll and have this whole end sequence been the mid-credit sequence.
Well, people started standing up, actually, because the blackness went on for so long that some people in the theater actually were standing up, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Well, this was the era, I mean, and they did this all the way through, phase 3, where once you understood, no, you stay, because the end credit sequence, I mean, they're not all bangers, and actually the end of this movie, I think, is one of the weaker end credit sequences in the phase 1, 2, and 3. Remember it. Well, yeah, when we get to it, it's like, it literally is just a trailer for Avengers. But,
Oh, that's what you mean. I thought you meant like the actual end credits sequence,
No, oh yeah, the sequence is good. I mean the post-credit scene. The famous Marvel post-credit scene. They were so
think it's weak, though. I think it was smart. I just hated the music.
It's not a bad little tease. I just wish that it seems odd now to see it, because the rest of them all are little tags that hint at something. And back then, most of them actually got paid off. And this one is just weird to see a trailer. And it literally says next summer. Go ahead.
I want to mention something here. Is it obvious to you what they wanted to do with this scene? What they wanted to happen here, but weren't able to due to scheduling conflicts?
Oh, you think with the casting of her?
They wanted Scarlett Johansson.
Oh. See, I always thought that they would have wanted what's her face? Peggy's niece.
Oh, I don't think that Agent 13 was really in their mindset at that point.
Very much of a callback. He's wearing the very close to the same outfit as he's running through New York here.
Same movements.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being in that situation. Like, talk about a fish out of water.
After Thor and this movie, I forgot how much Acura was a very prominent product placement in these early Marvel films.
I will be totally honest with you. I never noticed that in my life.
Oh, really? Yeah, they're very prominently showing the Acura in all these.
Yeah.
This is like Sam Jackson. It's a small little scene between the two of them, but I think it's very effective. And he does a lot with a little. It's a shame where he kind of his character ended up going in the Disney Plus era.
Yeah, well, he actually had some great moments and lines in the Marvels, but I can't forgive
this moment. I had it. Sorry, it gets me. Sorry, like asked you a question I wanted to watch. It just totally gets me.
That is the perfect ending.
Yeah,
like genuinely that and Thor, like those two endings. Actually, you know what? Think about this, okay? Think about I am Iron Man. She searches for you, and I had a date.
Oh yeah.
It's like those three endings, like the big three, the holy trinity of Marvel right now. And each of their first movies just has this ending that is unexpected, and for the latter two, like poignant. And so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. But this end credit sequence, I mean, it's very just, creatively, you're just leaning super heavy into the aesthetic of the 1940s and propaganda stuff from World War II, but it definitely fits with this film.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean it's not like the greatest like ending, credit sequence, but it's still it fits with the theme of this film so well. Yeah, it's solid. It's a solid B.
Yes. It's a solid number 2. I mean, part 2. So, in your ranking of Marvel movies, where does this stand?
So, if I am trying to be objective, this movie falls near the bottom of the top third, if that makes sense. I like it more. Like if I'm just gonna watch a Marvel film because I want to watch a Marvel film, this is pretty high up there. But I also I love World War II stuff. I love the 40s aesthetic. I love Captain America is my personal favorite of the MCU main heroes. But if you're trying to be objective, if you're trying to actually rank stuff and be fair, I think it's somewhere near like maybe 8 or 7, somewhere in there.
Okay. I put it in my own rankings as like a solid B+.
Oh, we're going with that kind of ranking.
Like, well, that's what for me.
Yeah.
Because I tend to rank things in A through A through F, because S tier doesn't exist and is stupid. But I don't know. I just really like it. I think it's great.
I think I mean if I was to me I mean B+ or A-, because I can't there's not a single major criticism I have for this film. It's all just a few little things. And when you're comparing it to like the highest highs of the MCU, it's not quite at that level. But I do think that it's it and Thor and Iron Man have they're all such good introductions to the characters. I mean, Thor is not as good as this film, but it's very solid, as we discussed last week. And Iron Man is just very good. But I'm also just a sucker for a good origin film,
Yeah, because it seems like origin films get harder and harder to do because we keep seeing them. There's even just like this running joke and meme specifically about like Spider-Man and Batman. Just like, how many times do we have to kill Uncle Ben? How many times do we have to see Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot in an alley?
Yeah.
And I kind of like when they're able to do an origin that's really good and solid, because they're so kind of trite almost.
Yeah.
And that some heroes don't even get an origin movie, like Black Panther, right?
Yeah, not really. Just kind of filled in through
Whereas
conversation.
others like Shang-Chi, right? That's a solid origin movie in my opinion. I love that film.
Mm.
And I think that they do it really, really well. Whereas Captain Marvel, unfortunately, doesn't do it very well. It really has a lot more good in it than I think people give it credit for, but it still biffs it pretty hard in other areas.
Yeah. Well, that movie could have been very good, actually. I don't think that it's like the awful thing that a lot of the internet thinks it is, but I do think that it, like you were talking about, it fails to give her a character that most people want to. Cause I know, gosh, my girls, I have 2 girls, and they both love Captain America. They both love, like, just, and not just in a like, oh, he's cute and he's handsome and he's in good shape or whatever. Like, no, they love the character. They think that he's just an amazing hero. And Carol Danvers, that's the one thing that they forgot to do, is just to give her more character. If they had been able to do that, Brie Larson's actually a very good actress, in my opinion. And if they had just written her with a little more nuance, a little more vulnerability, maybe let her mess up once or twice, they could have really had something special there. And especially going back to the 90s, I'm a 90s kid, so that would have been cool. I mean, that movie could have been one of my favorites if it had been, done better. When we get to that, I'll actually enjoy talking about that. So anyways.
Same. I very much agree. And I find that, like, I actually think that she has some really good moments in that movie. I rewatched it recently. And the main issue is not actually her not having a character arc, but was it a good enough character arc? Taking somebody from emotionless to snarky just doesn't have a great resonance. There's not enough vulnerability in it.
Well, and it's, again, not without overdoing the political stuff, but they had a bad habit of not letting female heroes like have flaws or weaknesses, or if they seemed like they did, they would show you, oh no, it's actually not. It just looked like it was, but it's actually, kind of they were always awesome type of a story arc, which is that's bad no matter who you. That's bad with guys too. Like, full disclosure, whenever you write a character arc they were just always awesome, it's boring, and it's not. Also, it's unrelatable because human beings do not have that arc ever. We all have to grow, make mistakes, screw up, and become more aware, and grow. Anyways, but no, this, and I think I could hear people make that argument about Steve, that he was just great all the time, but that's the whole point. Even though it's very on the nose and very, very upfront about the fact that he always had a good heart, he was always a good guy, but he was just, he physically was so little he couldn't do anything about it, and that's not growth. It's just, he got magic, the whole. But that's where they do a good job as these films go on, growing him, where he does have to grow in his conclusions he reaches. I like the fact that he's not, a blind patriot, just loves the government or whatever America says is fine. Like, they let it more be about the core idea of the values, and that he does have to confront Tony's accusation of the Avengers that everything special out of you, everything special about you came out of a bottle kind of stuff. And get into him having to make hard choices to be a soldier that does disobey orders at times. And I don't know, just there's, trying to do a super rush sum up, but there's growth in that area with him that I enjoy. And he struggles with his own old-fashionedness and clashing contrast with, kind of the modern world that he runs into. And there's nuance to his character that goes through these films that I enjoy, just like there is with Tony. They don't do all the character work in one movie with Tony. They take their time and do it over many films. And there's a reason why Cap and Tony are the two, kind of foundational characters this whole thing.
No, I agree. There's a lot to talk about on that one. I think that Tony and Captain America's, Tony and Steve's arcs through their own films and the Avengers movies leading to Civil War are some of the best character arcs. Like, the traceable the traceable series of events that leads them into that is truly incredible.
Yeah.
And solid. You kind of have to spell it out for some people because they're not like me, who's going to sit there and like think about and analyze these things at times.
Yeah.
Which
So
is
this is
nothing
where
against them. That's actually kind of
so how long has it been? Yeah, how long has it been since you've seen this part where we literally go into it? Like actually says next summer. That's what throws me off.
Yeah.
Just watching this now, it's like it's a trailer.
Mhm.
It's not a scene.
Yeah, the thing that really bugs me is the music. You hear that?
It is odd. Yeah, it's like this waka 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 waka.
That because that's even something that like if you go listen to Alan Silvestri's score from the Avengers, and they have like the Avengers Assemble part, it begins with this like chaka chaka techno part that almost like ruins it. I don't want it on any of my scores playlist, even though it has the iconic Avengers theme, because it has this beginning that's so like I hate it. Kills me.
Yeah, it's just in my mind, they should have in the theaters, had that teaser for Avengers. That's totally fine. I don't mind that in the theaters. But as far as like the preservation of this film, they should have had that whole. It would have been so good too to have that 1940s. They show the kids running off, and you go to credits. You go to that wonderful 1940s war propaganda credit sequence, and then had that final scene of him waking up in New York. And then
I
something.
actually
you don't think so?
I kind of disagree.
Okay.
I think that it's pretty much perfect as it is. I think that the after credits sequence, trailer's fine. The scene of Nick Fury coming up to him while he's hitting the bag, and it's just like, trying to get me back into the world, like trying to save it. Like, and then they have a scene of him like throwing down a file or something like that has like a picture of Thor and a picture of Tony. And then that's it. It ends right there.
And
that would have been fine. It would have been leading into the Avengers. It would have propped up excitement, but it's also showing kind of where Captain America is adjusting to the modern world.
Yeah. See, I would be fine with that if then in Avengers they did not have the exact same scene, because that scene is in Avengers. Like, they're literally that exact scene of him in the punching bag and Nick Fury walking up to him and talking to him. So they should have picked one, not had it in both.
I agree. But I think that this was also it was such a new thing.
Oh, yeah.
Such a new concept. They were obviously throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it worked. And the Avengers was such a risk that they needed to pour into it and really be able to sell it. And again, this movie is the important one to me.
Yeah.
It's just this is the movie that built the entire MCU. Iron Man by itself is great. This movie by itself is great. Thor by itself is good. But in order to create the Avengers, they needed this movie because this movie is just so grounded in character and emotion. There is not a big action sequence in this movie, this superhero action movie, for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The entire first act is character development and character building and just that indulgence. And you care about the characters enough that it doesn't seem like a slow start.
Yeah. Well, I feel like phase good. I think phase one in general had more trust in the audience to kind of like stick with us. We're going to get somewhere interesting and good, but let's take the time to make these characters something you're going to care about. And it just, as a general rule, phase one did that really well. And I mean, and phase 2 and 3 definitely had their versions of those also. I mean, they had their standouts for sure. But there was just that almost you could feel it from the filmmakers. Like, we have a vision for this. Give us some time, and we're going to end up in a place that's amazing. And it's a good example of that. But I was Well, again, too, I think I don't have the numbers right in front of me. This and Thor did shockingly like similar box office, like almost identical. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
I actually had the numbers right up here in front of me. Wait, I think I still do because I closed out some windows because my internet connection started being a little funky.
if
But
anybody,
yeah,
good. Go ahead.
this movie had some of the the lowest box office of the opening movies. It had a lower budget than Thor, though. This was or no, about the same. It was made for due to reshoots between 140 and 200 million dollars, and it made 370 million dollars. By some estimates, that's a box office bomb.
Yeah, it gets the budget. Yeah.
Yeah, that's remarkable. That like the Avengers was the I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to put the Avengers trailer is because I don't think the numbers were necessarily tracking the way that they wanted to. Because I think that this would be considered an abject failure if the Avengers hadn't done so well.
Okay, and I was totally off. Yeah, because Thor did like 450, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this was almost 100 million below it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I know this movie didn't have quite the international. Obviously, it's harder to sell Captain America to the rest of the world. But Thor is a little more accessible, just as a film. But yeah,
Which
this is
good to think.
yeah. But it's interesting. I've heard this film. I've heard this film be pretty low in a lot of people's rankings, and I know a lot of that's taste. Just again, some people just do not care for the 40s. They find it a little bit cheesy. I've heard a lot of different reasons as to why people put this, more towards the mid tier, kind of the bottom of the mid tier. I've seen some lists that had this thing pretty darn low, but I think a lot of it's just personal taste. This wasn't I think a lot of it might have been it wasn't as quippy. Steve you didn't have that Robert Downey Jr. Energy to the character, and you didn't have Thor was he was kind of funny, right? He was talking in the funny way, and you had the big and just a little more fantastical stuff. And this was honestly a pretty serious movie. And
yeah,
it's
also like this was a good boy too. He was a good boy. This wasn't the rebel prince, who was going to be a little bit chaotic on Earth type of thing. This wasn't Tony Stark, snarky billionaire bad boy. This is Captain America, and he's more quiet. He's reserved. He's the good boy, and people don't find that interesting.
Yeah, well,
and you're right. There is an aspect to it that, like, you feel, oh, they're not giving him any flaws, which I fundamentally disagree with. I think they went out of their way to make him unsteady, uncertain, reckless, even a little bit dumb in some ways, and like his whole thing with almost like if it wasn't for Peggy, it's like he would have started abusing his position and his power.
Yeah,
and I think that there's kind of a powerful character development there.
Yeah,
and it's just a little bit less stated. It's a little bit less to the forefront, and so people are just like, he's just a goody two shoes who doesn't have any actual character. And I'm like, nah, dude, this is a good one, but it's just more subtle.
Yeah, this is not. It paints in more nuanced character brushes, and I appreciate that, and it lets him grow through the characters around him. I also think this introduced one of the best strong women characters in the MCU by with Peggy, and the introduction of Bucky's given just enough that when he comes back in Winter Soldier, it really matters. He said it sets up so much, and if you I know I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again, if you didn't have someone like him opposite Tony, it wouldn't have been as good. The dynamic wouldn't have been as good. And when we get to Avengers next week, their relationship in that movie is really interesting. Is there the jealousy from his dad and all these things. We'll talk about it when we watch that. But and then as it develops into through Age of Ultron and through
Civil War and then
Civil War and then Infinity War. And it's
or lack of in Infinity War, which is almost like as important.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. It's really good stuff. So, anyways, I love this movie. I understand the people who rank it lower. Like, I don't think that they're crazy. I just it's hard for me to be totally objective about this film because it hits checks so many boxes for me. But yeah, really love it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say really fast. If anybody is wondering, Pat did have to step away, but halfway through. So if he didn't, we're not just ignoring him. He had to leave. If anybody's curious. So
Yeah.
sorry about that.
He was already having some technical difficulties, which is unfortunate because he wanted to add a little bit more, but technology kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had to jump off because he's helping out a friend who needs his help, and that's important.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
You have any final thoughts?
I just want to finish and say, it's just I really like this movie. I think it deserves more recognition. I think that it does try for, like you said, a bit more nuanced, while also like having that 1940s kind of earnestness that not everybody of today's audiences is really going to gravitate towards, and I get it. I wish that even if you don't like it, I wish that it got the respect that I think it deserves.
Yeah.
It bothers me that it doesn't get that, but whatever. I want to go into this entire spiel about how all of this stuff that they introduce into this movie connects to other things throughout the Marvel universe, because there's so much from Captain Marvel to Secret Wars to She-Hulk to Daredevil even, and into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, of course, and all the other Captain America movies. Just like, I feel like almost every Marvel movie following this, save like some of the like Thor's or whatever, connects to this movie in a way, calls back to this movie in a way. And the Super Soldier Serum is a major focus in things like the following Captain America 4 and Falcon and Winter Soldier and such. And it's good and it's impactful and very it has a legacy to it that I think is strong and should be remembered better than it is.
Well, you just kind of said this, but it's, if you took this out, if you introduced Cap in Avengers and you skipped this film, I think it would the negative impact that would have on the MCU as a whole would be massive, and I think people they kind of take it for granted, but it is it's vital. This is definitely not one of those films you could skip if you wanted to get through, the MCU, but you didn't want to watch all of them. This is not one of those optional films.
No, this is an absolute. Yeah, call me a Sith, but I'm dealing in those.
All right. Well, we should wrap this up. We appreciate everybody for listening, and we will be back next week to wrap up Phase 1 with The Avengers.
Oh, there's going to be so much to talk about on that one, because I believe that The Avengers, despite the fact that I'm like actively painting Avengers statues right now, like literally as we speak, and I'm super stoked about it, and I really like that movie, have super fun memories. It hasn't aged super well.
I like it also very much.
We'll talk about it next week.
But I would agree that there's some parts that are like, I'm looking forward to it, though. It's going to be fun to talk through that one for sure. So, good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow, that room will eat you.